That's better.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, A's fans, and welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about your Oakland A's and their final season in Oakland. I am your host for this season. My name is Paul Francis Sullivan, but by all means, please call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now, and I'm just scooting a little bit closer to my microphone. I've been here at the Locked On Podcast Network for the last 6 seasons. I've also been the host of Locked On MLB, so I'm doing basically 2 episodes a day, one of Locked On A's, one on Locked On MLB. Listen to both. Enjoy both. See if I contradict myself. Treat it as a game. Hey, follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or Locked On A's on Twitter or on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And if you are listening to us every day and you're posting on social media, use that hashtag EverydayA's. It helps us know who's listening to us every single day. Helps with some of the sponsors. What sponsors do you mean, Sully? Well, I can tell you that today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Prize Picks. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for first deposit match up to $100. We're going to cover a couple things today. The A's avoid a sweep by winning the first game, and that's a good thing. Maybe they'll go for the sweep of the Angels. Hey, I'll take a series win at this point. It was a kind of a fun game where everything kind of worked. Everything fired on all cylinders. And you wonder, why is it so hard? We're talking about the A's have made a bunch of moves on the major league level. And they've dropped a couple of major leaguers from the team. Say, hey, look, we're not going to get anything for you. Scram. Maybe they'll get picked up by other teams. We wish them luck. And on July 3rd, you're probably listening to this on July 3rd, this is the 50th anniversary of another A's-Angels game. This one was bananas. But let's go over the first game. By the way, if you saw the JPEG, you saw the thumbnail that we have for it, that says the A's pin the Angels. That's the hand and the pin there. That's not my hand. That's not my pin. Jessica Burke, who is a good friend of mine, big Los Angeles area fan, big Dodger fan. She's in town. She's in the Bay Area, and she went to a game at both Oracle Park and today went over to see the Angels play the A's. She's a Dodger fan. She's not an Angel fan, but it was a commemorative pin day, and she sent me a couple of pictures from the stadium, and so with her permission, that became our thumbnail we have today. So you literally have a thumbnail that features my friend Jessica's thumbnail. Let's go on to the game. It was obviously scoreless. Soriano and Spence pitched very well for the first 3 innings, and Spence got a little trouble here and there, but it worked out of it. And then Rooker hit a deep fly ball to center field to go for the home run to put the A's on the board. And while I was happy that, I was thinking, oh, great, another day of solo homers. But alas, an unbelievable thing happened with Lawrence Butler hitting that ball down the left field line, and the umpire review showed it was indeed a home run. So they got another home run, but this time there were actually runners on base, Langoliers and Geloff. So all of a sudden it was 4-0. I thought, oh my God. Did the A's just have a rally, a big inning? Now, of course, they coughed up a run the very next inning, but they held them. They kept the Angels from going bananas. And for the most part, Spence pitched pretty well. Then Harris, he's back on the big league level. We'll talk about that in a second. He wound up getting a double, and then that made it 6-1. And Blade got another hit. Suddenly it was 7-1. And so when it was 7-1 going to the seventh, I thought, okay, This happens every once in a while, not a lot, but every once in a while, the A's fire on all cylinders, kind of like that first game against Arizona over the weekend. And then they started crawling back. And you got the Schnell, got the Angels made it 7-3, and then Nolan I've never said his name out loud until today. Does that ever happen to you? There's a player who you've seen written, you've seen them mentioned, you've seen them on social media, you've seen that, but you've never once said their name out loud. And you had a moment where I was going, Schnee. I've never said his name. So I'm going to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth. His name is Nolan Schanuel. That, you know what? That was not in my top 50 attempts at that. Nolan Schanuel. Wow. I couldn't be more wrong. He was a first-round draft pick all the way back in 2023. Played a little bit last year. I don't really remember it. Maybe I remember it. I don't know. Nolan Schanuel. Okay, you are witnessing history the first time I said his name out loud. Watch someone go back to last year's episodes of Locked On MLB, and I said 5 or 6 times. Well, all I know is that he got an RBI single in the 7th and an RBI double in the 9th. And all of a sudden, Rengifo got a single. It was 7-5. And you think at that point, bring in Miller. But then you realize, oh, wait, we already did. And it was, look, I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. You always have to bring in Miller in a lead, whether it's a safe situation or not, because they're not often A's leads. So you can't use the whole excuse of, well, we can't wear them down. Well, have you seen this team? Do you really think this is going to be they're going to have a Moneyball 20 game winning streak anytime soon? So it was not his best game. He did let up a walk and 2 hits and 2 runs. But in the end, it didn't matter. The A's got the win. Spence did well. It wasn't a dominant game. He pitched into the 6th, let up 1 run, 6 hits, 1 walk. That's too many hits. Ferguson didn't pitch well out of the bullpen, but it didn't matter. They built up enough runs, and the A's won the game. And Jessica, my friend, who got herself, you can't ask much more she got to see the A's win, and she got a commemorative pin. So everybody wins on that one there. And so tomorrow's game is an evening game. By the way, it's hot as hell here. It's going to be like 100 degrees tomorrow. And I'm teaching summer classes tomorrow, and we're staying inside. We're drinking water and staying inside. So thankfully, tomorrow's game between the A's and the Angels is a 6:45 start here in the Bay Area. Estes versus Daniel. Davis Daniel, and we'll see how he does. But let's hope that this is not a situation like what we saw against Arizona over the weekend, where they win the first game and then they're AWOL the rest of the series, where they scored 1 damn run the rest of the series. Let's keep those bats going. They scored 7 runs. Turns out they needed almost all of those. So let's see what they've got in terms of continuing that and maybe, heaven forbid, winning a series. But as the A's are moving forward, they're going to have to make some moves. And maybe one of the first moves is to just cut bait on some players who just aren't doing it for them. And we're going to say goodbye to a couple of players who just are not going to contribute anymore to this year's A's. Hey, let's talk a little bit about hotels. Let's talk about booking hotels. Let's talk about Booking.com, or as I like to say, Booking.yeah. All right, this episode is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. Summer's coming up, and people love to make baseball trips. And you got to explore some of those great cities that you've wanted to learn more about, even some of your rival cities. I went on a baseball trip earlier this year, and I had a blast. I flew into Buffalo, got to see the Buffalo Bisons play, got to see the Syracuse Mets play in Syracuse. And then where did I go? The minor leagues? No. The major leagues? No, even higher. I went to the Hall of Fame. So I got to go all up and down upstate New York, and I got to stay in a bunch of different places. A really nice hotel downtown Buffalo, a nice safe hotel near the college in Syracuse, and a charming bed and breakfast in Cooperstown. How did I get all that together? How did I get the best deals for them? I got through Booking.com. With hotels, beds and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, whether it's in a minor league park, a major league park, or in Cooperstown itself. So from hotels to look over the stadiums to those quaint bed and breakfasts right down the street from the Hall of Fame, Booking.com has so many choices across the United States for your summer travel this baseball season. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or on the app, Booking.com. Did you say Booking.com, or did you mean Booking.yeah? But it's more than booking a hotel if you go on a trip like that. You are going to need to get your tickets. And there is no better place to get your tickets than with Game Time. Now, Game Time is the best place to get your tickets and the right tickets. It's an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. They got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from the seats, and lowest price guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. My friend Jessica, whose thumbnail is on the thumbnail, she used Game Time to get her tickets at Oracle Park to see the Giants. It was a big game, big crowd. She wanted to sit in the right place, and she had great seats along the third base side. Fabulous seats. And in Oakland, yeah, I know the A's have troubles, getting an attendance there. Doesn't mean you want to buy the wrong ticket. She found the ideal ticket where she wanted to because she used the zone deals. She knows exactly where she likes to sit, and Zone Deals picks out the best deals. Also, you got seat views. So Jessica got to see panoramic views of the seat before she bought it. And Game Time ticket coverage means the purchase is covered with most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Don't take my word for it or Jessica's. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices. Jessica will tell you they are guaranteed. Hey, where is your go-to hub for all your sports news? Where do you go to get your news and takes and opinions? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed to bring you the biggest sports stories out there. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, takes, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube with the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Well, I mentioned earlier that Brett Harris contributed to the win today. Brett Harris was part of the A's when I went to see them on the May 4th game. He hit 2 home runs. It was his first 2 hits in the major leagues. He homered, then homered again. That was that magical day that started with a 3-hour rain delay that I attended that the A's lost, the A's won to clobbering the Marlins. And on that glorious day, they got to 500. Nothing much right went since then, and not a lot went right for Harris, who hit those home runs in his first 2 games. The first 2 hits he got as an Oakland A. But then he just his stats just absolutely plummeted after that, and he was sent down to AAA. And then he got on the injured list. But in the last week, he has been hitting tremendously for the Las Vegas Aviators, and it was clear it was time to bring him up. especially with the injury to Abraham Toro. The other big move that they made was bring up Tyler Ferguson, another pitcher who was up earlier this year, sent back down. Along the way, Sean Newcomb and Almeida Diaz have both gone. Newcomb is a left-handed pitcher, and he has had some injury issues, and he's been letting up a lot of runs recently. And the A's are probably not going to get anything for him in a deal. So with that in mind, at this point, you might as well just make room for some of the young players and say, see what you can do. See what you can do right now. Sean Newcomb has been placed basically designated for assignment. He pitched 7 games with the A's, 10 innings. His ERA was over 6. And so, for the former Atlanta Brave pitcher, it was a tough time of it, but there you go. Interesting thing is that he was part of the 2021 World Series champion Atlanta Brave team. He did not pitch in the postseason that year, but he has himself a World Series ring to his credit, and then found himself on Oakland, bounced around a little bit, but he was acquired from the Giants for Trenton Brooks, a first baseman who has played a handful of the games at first base for the Giants this year. Not exactly an impact player, but he has now been let go and is probably going to just be released. And he's a left-handed pitcher who has pitched in the postseason before. He pitched in the League Championship Series with the Braves in 2019, as I mentioned, was part of the team that won the World Series. Who knows? Maybe a team takes a flyer on him and hope they catch lightning in a bottle. The other player who was let go was Elmendi. Why am I? It's because it's late. It's because I'm doing this a little later than I initially wanted to. That's why. So that's why I'm my tongue is being tripped over by, but some of the names. Aledmys Diaz. Yes, Aledmys Diaz. I've said his name before. The interesting thing about him is that he has been, he was an all-star if you go all the way back to the 2016 Cardinals. He came up, batted 300, hit 17 home runs, could play a bunch of different positions, and he wound up and he looked like he was going to be a young stud for the St. Louis Cardinals. And then he was shipped off to the Blue Jays, and then the Blue Jays shipped him off to the Houston Astros, where he was kind of a super sub for the Astros and played in the 2021 World Series for the Astros, and also played the 22 World Series. So he got a couple of World Series. Actually, he to be fair, he played the 19, the 21, and the 22 World Series. He got to play in 3 different World Series, finally winning a ring with the 2022 Houston Astros. He came over to the Oakland A's in the 2023 season as a free agent, hoping he would be kind of a super sub. And in the end, it didn't work out. But again, Newcomb and Diaz are veteran players. They have a World Series ring on their finger. And someone might say, hey, we need a left-handed pitcher. And you don't need him to be great for a whole season. Or we need a major league body to be on the bench who could play a bunch of different positions. So it would not stun me if Diaz or Newcomb will wind up playing for a contending team before this year is out. It's just the A's aren't that contending team. They won't be able to get piddly-poo in trades for them, and they might as well just bring up some of their young players. This might be a little bit of addition through subtraction. But we tip your hat to 2 major leaguers who at least took a flyer with the A's. The A's took a flyer with them. And who knows? They may play in the postseason with some team. They may each get a second ring. We come back, we're going to talk about a game that took place 50 years ago that was wild and worth remembering. Hey, Sorry, premature there. Hey, do you know what Prize Picks is? It is the number one daily fantasy sports site in America. It is the single most fun way to get in on the daily action with your friends, and you can become part of the Prize Picks community. All you do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is the easiest, most exciting way to get in. And unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. If you're looking for promotions, Prize Picks has you covered every week. From lowering select player stat projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including Texas, Georgia, and right here in California. Download the Prize Picks app and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's Prize Picks. In the end, it's really that easy. This is a reminder that Locked On has created the first ever national streaming sports channel on YouTube. And now it's available in the free Fire TV channel app on your Amazon Fire TV. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channel app. All right, the A's and the Angels are going to be playing again today. 50 years ago, the A's and the Angels locked antlers in let's just call it a very interesting game. It was played at the Anaheim Stadium in front of fewer than 10,000 fans. The A's were the defending World Series champion at that time, and Alvin Dark had taken over as the manager after Dick Williams resigned at the end of the 1973 World Series. Dick Williams was now managing the Angels. And the two locked antlers at this point. The Angels were well behind the A's. The A's were trying to win their 4th straight division title. The A's lineup included Bill North, Bert Campanera, Sal Bando, Reggie Jackson, Joe Rudy, Gene Tennis, and Angel Manuel, Ted Kubiak, and catching was Larry Haney. Their starting pitcher was Glenn Abbott, who was not one of their big stars, but he wound up playing on a couple of postseason teams, including that year's World Series champs. The Angels lineup was strange. A lot of players you associate with other teams, like Mickey Rivers in center field, and Bobby Valentine, the catcher, and Denny Doyle at second base. I totally forgot that eventual Red Sox second baseman Denny Doyle even played for the Angels. Bobby Valentine at third, and Andy Hassler, who played later for both the Red Sox and the Royals, was the starting pitcher for the Angels. Well, the two teams faced off, and it was a 1-0 A's lead going into the 8th inning. And, the A's still had Raleigh fingers. They still had some good relievers on there. But alas, Glenn Abbott still was pitching in the 8th when he allowed a 2-out, 2-run double to Leroy Stanton that scored both Mickey Rivers and Dave Chalk, and gave the Angels a 2-1 lead. And Andy Hassler, again, it was a different era. No need to bring in your relief pitcher. Andy Hassler was going to throw a complete game. I always thought of Andy Hassler as a reliever, but here he was throwing a complete game. He got Manuel and pinch hitter Rich McKinney to make outs. So there was 2 outs and nobody on, and the Angels up 2-1. Andy Hassler on the mound, and Jesus Alou, yet another player you associate with other teams, came up as a pinch hitter for Larry Haney. Alou got a single, beat out an infield hit. Who came in to pinch run for him? The designated runner, Herb Washington. If you don't know who he was, Charlie Finley hired a track star, Herb Washington, to be a pinch runner for the team. He had no baseball experience. In the end, he never appeared in the game on the field or had an at-bat. He was purely a pinch runner. He was very fast. He also had very bad baseball instincts, sometimes trying to steal second base when there was a runner on second base. But Bill North came up with Herb Washington on, hit a ground ball to Bobby Valentine to end the game, except Bobby Valentine threw the ball away. So now you had track star Herb Washington going from first to third. Billy North, who is no slouch himself on the base paths, was on second. And up stepped Bert Campaneris, who got an infield single that scored Herb Washington. And then on the throw home, an error was made that allowed Bill North to score, and Bert Campaneris got to second. So on ground balls, 3 straight ground balls in the infield with 2 outs and nobody on. An infield single by Jesus Alou, an error by Bill North, an infield single by Bert Campaneris. 3 hits that didn't get out of the infield. And the A's came back to take a 2-1 lead. So now you bring in Raleigh Fingers, right? Nope. Glenn Abbott comes out. He gets a grounder to Lalud. The GOAT, Bobby Valentine, flew out, and John Doherty grounded out to the pitcher. A complete game effort for Glenn Abbott on a rally where 3 hits did not get out of the infield. A crazy game that took place 50 years ago today. The A's would go on to win the World Series. Whether this team does go on to win the World Series or not has yet to be seen. But let's be positive, shall we? The A's are going to go to try to get the series win against the Angels tomorrow. So let's roll the dice and see what happens. Thanks for checking in, Jessica Burke, for being at the game. Meanwhile, you can follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever it's called now. On Instagram, I am your pal Sully at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Talking about a good A's game, talking about A's who have been let go, and memories of an absolutely bananas game from 50 years ago today. This has been Locked On A's. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.